yes, Nubian.
Can you do anything other than Watto?
Do or do not. There is no try.
I can do Yoda.
Yeah, you've got a better Yoda than I do.
But there's a difference between like prequel trilogy and OT trilogy because
about 20 years.
It's a tone.
Yeah, it's a
that
tone
I can't
thing.
get.
Because it's like,
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
and then you get like crazy OT Yoda where he's just like, you know, so it's like there's just a difference, you know. All right, let's do the episode.
I like crazy OT Yoda.
Does it cry?
I mean, it would not have taken me 800 years to go bat crazy and just not give any anymore.
Now you know you can't say in the actual episode, right?
Well,
Like at this point, I've had to bleep us out 4 times.
so bastard is okay when referring to the cat.
Yes. But an actual human being, I would probably stray away from that.
Noted.
Because it's just a cat.
The rockin' bird is nice and cool, and the fish is just as sweet. Smash their heads on the rocks below.
I'm uncomfortable. Episode 48 of Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars show podcast. You watch us, you listen to us. However you do so, we're just happy that you're part of our Star Wars conversation. You know these two guys, Jesse, David, here with you for another week. And my goodness, last week, we talked about how it felt like the first time where we had a lot of Star Wars news. There's just a lot going on. We ended the show. We went to bed. The next day, my goodness, all heck breaks loose in Star Wars news. New casting news. We got news of John Williams' involvement with Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars theme park, both in California and Florida. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But really excited to dive in to this week's news. Should we just go right into Real Talk, guys?
You betcha.
Real Talk, the segment where if it's on the screen, whether that's the movie screen, the TV screen, maybe your iPad, your mobile phone, hey, we're talking about it because it's Star Wars and it's a movie, it's a TV show, who knows? But we're starting right now with The Mandalorian. EW confirms Pedro Pascal to play the lead in The Mandalorian. Entertainment Weekly's Anthony Bresnikan reports that sources have confirmed Pedro Pascal will play the lead role, the upcoming live-action Star Wars series for the Disney Plus streaming service. Quote, the actor will play the lead role in the Bounty Hunter series being created by Iron Man and Jungle Book filmmaker Jon Favreau for the Disney Plus streaming service, sources confirmed with EW. So kind of just reiterating what we've known, but Bresnikan does add the series has been in production without their lead actor in place. Quote, production is already underway without that lead actor, and Pascal's addition is a key piece missing. Surprised and excited. This is a casting that has to excite not just Star Wars fans, but now you get maybe pull over from Game of Thrones. I think that's where he's most known. And Jesse, you're pretty familiar. I think the Red Viper is who he plays.
Yes, he plays Prince Oberyn, also known as the Red Viper in the Game of Thrones books. If you didn't read the books, obviously you've watched the show.
I've done neither. I like to get attached to characters, and Martin does not, so we don't see eye to eye on storytelling.
David Gilbert would probably cry like 90% of the time while watching or reading that series. He's fantastic. It's one of those those actor roles that you couldn't have cast anybody else, kind of thing. He was perfect for that role, just like Peter Dinklage was cast as Tyrion Lannister, perfect for the role.
And the character that he plays in Game of Thrones, he's the reason why the series kind of needs to be on HBO, right? A lot of it's adult content that he is a participant in.
A very open individual. But I mean, his character was just in the books, there was a lot more to his character in the books. But he's just a phenomenal actor and everything. So I'm excited to see, like, the weird thing is, as soon as this was announced and that picture that we had of the Mandalorian armor, like you can just kind of like basically just like you can see like the body language and like okay, that makes sense. Like
You're taking a lot away from that photo, but I like it. I like how
Yeah.
your imagination works.
So-
It's not the only role that he is known about, though, right, David? You know him from something else.
So I haven't seen Game of Thrones. So I recognize him from Kingsman: The Golden Circle, the one that came out about a year ago.
Okay.
He was one of the American statesmen. I think his nickname was Whiskey. He was also in Deadpool. No, he wasn't in Deadpool. What else was he in? He was in The Equalizer 2. The Denzel movie that came out over the summer, had a role in that. That was a lot of fun. What I'm curious to know is they've done a lot of production already on this show without having a lead character in there. So I wonder, now that they have identified and hired that person, if that's actually going to change some of the things that they've already done. Are they now going to go back and do some rewrites to kind of make sure that what they envisioned and what they're getting is going to line up together?
I think what is exciting to me is the fact that, as I mentioned, it's like with the fan bases, getting that excitement up. And also, what you're saying, David, there's a lot of pieces to this production. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you can do work on parts of the story without the lead, but it definitely does feel like you're putting the cart before the horse when you don't have the lead cast on set.
it kind of depends. Like when hearing that, what I immediately think of is like, oh, we blew up a Star Destroyer, so we didn't like need like. It's almost like the opening cinematic when the Star you see the Tantive 4 flying over Tatooine, and then the starter. There's no actors or actresses actually talking, so that's like the kind of stuff that I feel like that may have been shot or something like that environment building or that atmosphere building that doesn't
second
actually
unit type.
yeah, like it
stuff.
doesn't actually like future any of the main characters or side characters. It's more like filling in. It's like the holes in between the plots.
And like you're saying, the movies, the special effects works over here, on set works over here, costuming works over there. Like everyone has their own space. I do think it's interesting. Wouldn't you think, David, that you'd want your lead on set from a leadership role, kind of setting the tone on set, but at the same time, you have Jon Favreau helming this project. You have Dave Filoni helming this project. You have guys like Taika Waititi. You have Ron Howard's daughter. These are people that are direct. You have big names directing these things. Maybe it's a sign of confidence that Disney has and Favreau has in the overall project to be able to be working, in this way, bringing on the lead. This far into production.
I think it's interesting you say that because I was thinking about that the other day when I was reading this article. When we went to Wizard World, we were talking to some of the other people, and they had a couple of the Q&A sessions. They some people asked about that. As a lead character, do you have a leadership role? And the answer was very much yes, because a lot of times, like this show, they'll have different directors come in. Favreau's not always going to be on set. Filoni's not going to be on set. But the person who's going to be most on set is that lead male or lead female characters. So they do kind of take on that leadership role. So I think this is a pretty cool opportunity for him to kind of get involved in that, see what he's got, and see where they can take this program. Obviously, they think he can do the acting, and maybe he can rally the rest of the actors too.
I'm really excited about it. I think The Mandalorian is probably the property that excites me the most. I mean, you think about The Mandalorian, the Cassian Andor series we talked about last week. We have Episode 9. We have the final season of Clone Wars. You have Star Wars Resistance out there right now. The Darth Vader comic, I'll even throw up on there. I usually wouldn't want to put a comic on a movie or a TV list, but that story is really fantastic. And so for the first time, it's strange. TV, this streaming content has me more excited than the grand finale of the saga, which says a lot about a lot of different things, I think.
I'd also like to know this is actually going to be the third Game of Thrones actor that's been cast into the galaxy.
Do you like seeing that crossover?
A little bit. I mean, you got Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Brienne of Tarth. She plays Captain Phasma. We just had Emilia Clarke as Kira in the Solo movie.
Who produces Game of Thrones? Is that a Disney property?
It's an HBO property.
Really?
That's where D.B. Weiss
And what's exciting is we just learned that we now know that next April is when the final season of Game of Thrones drops, which now that opens up, you could have, because you got to think they've been working on scripts for their movies already. So I would say April at the latest, we might be seeing something. I think Star Wars Celebration, you can honestly expect something from a Benioff and Weiss property, if not the era that it's going to be in, some kind of visual, like an image, kind of like what we got with The Mandalorian, that just picture. We're going to get something at Star Wars Celebration, I think.
I think you have to be careful. Like, I think it'd be cool to see more of those actors, actresses, appear, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't want to see like the whole cast.
Right.
I
get that.
Come over.
But
like,
with Gwendolyn Christie, Amelia Clarke, and now Pascal, I don't think any of them take me out of the story.
Yeah,
though, being
exactly.
told. We haven't seen The Mandalorian yet, but these are great actors and actresses where you just see them as the character. Like when I see Gwendolyn, if it's in the Star Wars setting, I just see Captain Phasma. If it's just Game of Thrones, I see her there as that character. So I think it's really exciting. Just a high caliber actor like this to helm this product, and once again, it just reinforces just how much effort, passion, due diligence is being invested in this property. We want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about Pedro Pascal being cast in this lead role of the Mandalorian for Jon Favreau's series? Let us know down in the comments below. Now, the casting news is not over for The Mandalorian. We got a second. This was the day after we learned about Pedro. We're now learning Gina Carano has joined the cast of the live-action series The Mandalorian. This, according to The Hollywood Reporter, that Gina has joined the cast of the what they're calling the inaugural live-action Star Wars television series. For anyone unfamiliar with her, she is a retired MMA fighter and has since she does a lot of action movies. And I'm not saying this to be rude; it's just the truth. She's not known for her acting ability. She's known for her ability to succeed in action sequences. She is a great physical actress. Jessie, I think you can empathize with me. She's not a known
honestly,
actress.
Like they announced this, and I was like, who?
Right.
And I don't want that to sound bad, because I'm sure there are people who are like, she's such and such.
Yeah.
So I mean, I saw the article, and then like Deadpool. Okay, who was she in Deadpool? So I mean, I looked. I was like, oh.
And she was cool in Deadpool.
I was like, okay, yeah, she was cool in Deadpool, but again, the character was very little words kind of thing. She was kind of like this.
She's the enforcer.
Yeah, she was basically like kind of a strong, like she kind of kicks Deadpool's butt. She was like a Russian like fighter kind of thing. Like, so it's just like, okay, great. So I am curious to see if maybe she'll have more dialogue or what kind of role.
Yeah. David, you're a little bit more familiar, right?
So Gina and I go way back, like
way back.
way back. We're talking like 2008.
Kindergarten?
Like our relationship's a good decade old. I know her from the Command and Conquer Red Alert 3 game.
Wow.
Did you ever play that one?
No, but I know friends that did.
So with Red Alert 3, they tried something pretty different.
Okay.
They threw a lot of cutscenes into their game, and they had a pretty awesome cast. They had Tim Curry as the Russian leader. J.K. Simmons was the president.
Wow.
George Takei was the Japanese leader. But Gina was one of the Russian operatives that would like pop up on the screen and tell you, oh, you just beat that objective. Here's what you need to do next. And then she would interact with Tim Curry every now and then as they're conspiring together to destroy the other two factions. And so I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed her in that role.
That's awesome. I had no idea that she had involvement in video games. When I did some research on her, because I only knew her from Deadpool. She was in Fast and Furious. I wrote that down. Haywire, and it was actually Fast and Furious 6. So again, reiterating, action. That's what she's known for. Physicality. That is someone that you'd want to see cast in a Star Wars movie, because that tells me that the action in this series is going to be of a high caliber. That excites me.
And I think that's really important, because if you look at some of the nerd chat rooms on the interwebs, there's a lot of conversation about choreography and fight scenes. They talk about it in the Marvel Netflix shows all the time. I think they dub it like the hallway scenes is how they kind of describe them.
Well, think about Daredevil Season 2. My goodness, going down that hallway, that was all one shot.
And they do that multiple times throughout the Marvel Netflix shows. The Titans TV show is getting a lot of love because of the fight fight scenes. So I think more and more people are wanting to see that action, and I think she's going to give it to us.
Is it melee or melee?
I think
Melee.
people say both. but
Melee. Okay. I think that's what we're going to get a lot with her character. I don't know how big of a role she will have, but it excites me. Is she another Mandalorian? Is she a bounty hunter? Is she a good person? Because I think you could maybe make the argument that she doesn't play the best baddie, or maybe you think she plays a really great baddie. But she could be a good person too. I think the assumption is because of what we've seen with like Deadpool, for example, that she would be cast as someone, like a rogue or a dark side. But maybe she's good. Who knows? We just know that she got cast in the movie, and that is really exciting for us. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that we haven't touched upon with her? Do we think minor or lead characters? Just go ahead, like a minor or major character.
I want to say maybe in between. I want in between.
Okay.
Major character if they're announcing her this early.
Okay, I dig it. I'm going to say in between a minor and major. I think she'll be a reoccurring character, and we'll find out together. What do you think about this casting news that we have Gina Carano in a Star Wars property, The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau's streaming service for Disney+. The service itself, which will debut in 2009. Let us know down in the comments below. Next topic in Real Talk. Simon Pegg says new Star Wars films are missing George Lucas's imagination. If I would have pegged anyone to say this, it would not have been Simon. Okay, so he appeared in Force Awakens as Unkar Plutt. I thought that was pretty smooth. And he's known for slamming the prequels pretty hard, especially The Phantom Menace. He's quoted saying it jumped up firework display of a toy advert. But he seems to have a new theory that Star Wars needs George Lucas. In a quote, he says, "I must admit, watching the last Star Wars film, meaning The Last Jedi, the overriding feeling I got when I came out of it was, I miss George Lucas." Pegg confessed on the Adam Buxton podcast, "For all the complaining that I'd done about him in the prequels, there was something amazing about his imagination."
Do you think that's a kind way to slam Rian Johnson? Because he didn't complain about The Force Awakens. So is this just a clever way for him to say that the Rian Johnson movie was awful?
Well, if you think about it, we heard him being very vocal about The Force Awakens, as you mentioned, because his buddy J.J. Abrams directed that, gave him the role of Unkar Plutt, as I mentioned just a couple of seconds ago. Very much excited about the vision that his friend had with that movie. And I wasn't able to pull it up, but I think he was quoted a few times talking about how he liked like the grid or something of Rogue One. That might be inaccurate, but I'm pretty sure he's been quoted about that movie. But he was very silent and tight-lipped about The Last Jedi when it first came out. Everyone was kind of wondering what he would think because he is such a fanboy that has been integrated. He's like a Greg Grunberg, you know?
Yeah, like his fandom is referenced in so many different ways. I mean, the movie Paul, for example, which was a comedy movie with Seth Rogen and the other actor that's Shaun of the Dead kind of thing.
No, Nick Frost.
But I mean, like he's him and Kevin Smith, are some of the the most biggest Star Wars nerds and celebrity history kind of thing. So yeah, like I remember with The Force Awakens, like they were talking like Abrams would actually kind of pick Simon's brain a little bit on what he thought on something, so he was actually kind of like an advisor or kind of like in some ways, like he kind of gave some direction and creative contribution to The Force Awakens.
Kind of like an advisor or something.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so I think about this though, but he was known. I know him most. He ridiculed. Well, no. First, I'll say I most know his Star Wars fandom because he tried to do the Star Wars parody where he dressed up as C-3PO. But he also was like very critical of the Jar Jar character in the prequels. He talked a lot about how he didn't like Jar Jar at all. And when Ahmed Best came out with that video a couple of months ago, or that photos talking about how he suffered depression and suicidal thoughts, I mean, Pegg came out and apologized. He's like, I was part of that person's struggles, and I feel terrible about that. I think Simon Pegg is a great Star Wars fan. I think he's super passionate, and I think that I think I'm in line with a lot of his thoughts on the newer Star Wars. And I feel like I've said this before. I don't know. David, what do you think about Simon Pegg and his words about missing George Lucas in Star Wars.
You know, I think he's kind of got a point there. And this is something that you've been harping on for the last 11 months since the movie came out, is that they're giving us something new in a way that's something old, but not in a way that we want to see it. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, the fan base wants more, and they say, okay, we'll give you more. And then we complain that it's too much the same in The Force Awakens. And then they say, okay, we'll give you something new. And then they give us something new, and then we complain about that. Mm-hmm. So I think Disney's just at a no-win. But I think Pegg has some I'm a big Simon Pegg fan, so I kind of agree with what he says. That you know, we do need a little more imagination because we're just kind of circling back through. And I think it all comes down to they need a better story development team.
Do you take it as a tactful slam on Johnson, the creative writing team?
I think so. Like, Pegg, you know, he contributed to the development of The Force Awakens. Abrams picked his brain, asked for his input.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you think this is right, and everything. Obviously, Pegg was not involved with The Last Jedi.
Right.
And, you know,
Neither was
we've
JJ.
touched on it numerous times in previous episodes where I think they gave too much free reign to Rian Johnson. I think they should have said, no, you're straying way too far off of what JJ has set up. Because now in some ways, I almost feel like JJ has to do damage control in some manner. Otherwise, the third film and the
But it's
these movies is gonna
interesting
fail.
because Disney was so excited with the product that Ryan put together. They praised it for months. They finished it. They put it on the shelf in September, all done, ready to go for a December release. And they were just so excited for it. Where they were even trying to pull like Academy Award type conversations,
Yep.
right? They're trying to put in.
There was a
Mark
rumor that
Hamill and-
Mark Hamill would win an Oscar for his performance as Luke Skywalker.
they were trying to get him nominated for it, and so it's interesting to me, just how I don't know. I just think it's cool. I think it's interesting how it all fits together.
I think it's a sign for me that you can't bring George Lucas's imagination back into Star Wars unless you bring George Lucas back. And I don't think that Disney would do that. I think that they should bring him on as an advisor. I think that would be really great.
Yeah.
You know, and then to address, you know, Simon Pegg's comment, also keeping in mind that he's a huge fan. Like we've talked about, like he's got a ton of properties that he's been attached to over the years where he's referenced his fandom. I think you've mentioned before Paul, right?
Yeah.
Where he references his fandom
Just
there.
tons of references throughout that movie.
And so it's like, to me, it goes back onto the story group, and this is like an ongoing theme that we've had on our show. The story group right now is just a consultant firm, essentially. The director gets to write whatever story he or she wants to. They go to the story group and say, fact check this to make sure it doesn't disrupt the canon timeline. Say what you want about canon. There's ripples in it already. And Disney said that when they bought Star Wars, bought Lucasfilm, that they were restarting the canon. And so like there's already these little fractures. And I'm not going to agree with this, but there are some people that say that Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi ruins canon, ruins canonical Luke. I'm not getting in that conversation. The story group, I think, ultimately has to take ownership of the stories being told. They need to be producing the content. So if you're not going to have George Lucas involved, that story group should have created the script and story for 9. Or just the story for 9, and then have the director come in and help them screenwrite.
They don't even need George. They have his protege.
Dave Filoni. Why is he not on this? Here's my thing. You can't have Dave Filoni doing everything, and I think his passion is still creating content, but I think that he needs to be like an at-large member of the storytelling group.
Jon Favreau obviously is utilizing him.
And you know what? I think it's going to make The Mandalorian an instant success.
Yes.
George Lucas is a great writer, a great storyteller, but his best work being the original trilogy. I think there's great themes and events that happen in the prequels, but the original trilogy was all about collaboration, and he did his best work collaborating with other directors. He did the first one, then he brings in Irvin Kershner for the second one, and then the third one gets its own director. And so I just feel like you could bring George back because you have these mechanisms in place to collaborate with him. But maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're right. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Billie Lourd calls Star Wars Episode 9 experience magical. She filmed for 3 weeks, according to Entertainment Tonight. The agency has managed to score this exclusive interview ahead of the final season of FX's American Horror Story Apocalypse, which that's what she's known for, is that American Horror Story franchise, her involvement with that. When talking on the subject of A Galaxy Far, Far Away, Lord explained that she was enthralled by her experience, while also making mention of how much time she spent on the set of J.J. Abrams' second Star Wars film. She says, I gotta watch myself because the Star Wars PD is going to come get me, but it is incredible. I've read the script and I've been on set. I was on set for about 3 weeks back in September, and it is going to be magical. I can't say much more, but I'm so excited about it and so grateful to be part of it. Star Wars is my heart. I love it. Great things to hear her say. I don't think I would expect anything else. If Billie Lourd came out and said, I spent 3 weeks on the set of Episode 9, here's the title, I think it's garbage. Disney and Lucasfilm PR are just like straddling themselves at that moment. They are not happy about what Billie Lourd said.
Today's news, Billie Lourd has disappeared.
Right, but that's not the case. She comes out here with optimism, and I think I would expect nothing less from her. I think that her involvement has been very special to her. Of course, spending time, on set for 7 and 8 with her mom, Carrie Fisher, the late Carrie Fisher. I think it plays a special role in her life and in her career. I mean, if you put Star Wars on your resume, you can argue me all day. It helps.
Well, Star Wars was the first thing on her resume.
Oh,
that got her the American Horror
That's
Story
right.
job.
Force Awakens got her that opportunity. I also think maybe being Carrie Fisher's daughter might play a role. I'm not saying that nepotism is the only thing. I'm just saying, business is business. Networking helps. It's who you know. Yeah. I'm just saying, how do you think that Ron Howard's daughter got to direct an episode of The Mandalorian? It just might help out. But, I want to talk about this first. Jesse, you look at her character's role as this saga is played out. And what's the name of her character again? I'm spacing on it.
Kadel Kokonix.
That's right. She's like an informant. And she's like a TD, a technical
what is her title
assistant? She's like a general.
No, she's a lieutenant of some sort.
She's a lieutenant. So in Force Awakens, very small role. I'd call it a cameo. Episode 8, we thought it was a good idea to have her say the first words of the movie. And then she kind of pops up a couple more times. Like all the Resistance people die except for her and like 4 others. Jesse, do we think that this role in Episode 9, she spent 3 weeks on set, will be larger or smaller?
I want to say either it's going to be on the same scale as The Last Jedi or maybe a little bit larger. I just you said it, you hit the nail right on the head there. In The Force Awakens, it was more like one of those family member cameo kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which was fine. My issue in The Last Jedi with the character is it actually felt forced. I didn't really know who this character was. They didn't do here's a character. Okay, we're bringing this character back, but did they even mention her name in the movie?
I don't think so.
Her name's never been said.
Now I feel like I have to go home and watch The Last Jedi to see if her name's actually mentioned.
It's not.
It's not. I don't know how she survived the big explosions that blew up the hangar, and I don't know how she missed all of that as a lieutenant.
She was on the last transport ship.
She was always on the bridge too.
I don't know how she survived the bridge either.
She wasn't on the
I don't know where she was that she survived, and everybody else died.
Akbar died on the bridge. Couldn't have taken Haldo out anytime sooner. I think it's interesting how that works out. I think I get what you're going towards. Mm-hmm. My thing, I can see this character getting a 5-part comic miniseries, and you following her around a Resistance base, or she has to go on some mission. I see this character, because of what happened with Carrie, and because of Billie Lourd's involvement with the saga, I can see this character now getting a mini story and exploring this crazy mission that she once had to do to get some power converters. I can see that happening because
Tashi Station.
Yeah, it's
runs into
you knew my uncle,
farmer Uncle Owen.
Yeah, right. So it's this is one of those characters where I see that happening. And maybe I'm far-reaching, but I think that would be the case. And honestly, I might pick up the first issue.
I hope that they do more with her, because I feel like the general theme for the new Disney-era Star Wars movies are introducing a lot of characters and then not doing anything with them.
Right. So you would be are you further saying that you'd be okay with an expanded story on the character?
I'm okay with an expanded story because they have to have like somebody who survives this.
Something that's actually written.
But
good.
now I feel this goes against what we've been saying before, which is if it's truly important for the story, then it needs to be included in the saga film. Mm-hmm. Because an argument that we've shared on this show, this is a David point. I don't agree. I like reading the novels. But if it's crucial for the story, David wants to see it on the saga film because this is not a book to film franchise. This is a film to book franchise.
To book, to comic, to...
Right.
Again, this is the thing. If you're going to introduce a character, it needs to be done properly. She was a cameo in The Force Awakens, and then she was thrust into our face in The Last Jedi with very, very little dialogue even still, and with no character development.
And yet I still like her more than Captain Phasma.
I'll admit, Phasma has been kind of a disappointment on screen.
When you get Gwendolyn Christie to be that character, and you don't show her face at all but an eye, and you give the character minimal dialogue,
That's why they should bring her back.
minimal action, you can't just be finding ways to kill her off. Like, I kind of just assumed that she wasn't smart enough to get out of a trash compactor, so I could assume she was dead after Force Awakens. So when she came back for Last Jedi, I was like, all right, so she's here again. Then she dies in the fiery abyss.
Or did she?
Oh my gosh. That her armor, I think I brought this up before, is the remnants of a Naboo starfighter.
It did reflect a blaster bullet point blank.
Yeah, but isn't like a blaster bullet different than, fire?
Go on. I mean, like...
You know how many degrees that fire had to be? That had to be like 100,000 degrees. Look at all that fire.
Who knows? Maybe it was just flames and she
Well,
went
it was
through and there was nothing there.
It was a lot of red fire, so I don't know how hot red flame is. Because isn't like white flame the hottest?
Yeah, I don't know. But
I'm not a scientist.
It's one of those things where I actually am I want to see Captain Phasma come back with a vengeance,
Right.
and actually be dangerous instead of just some almost like pucky comic relief
Right.
like they made General Hux.
To wrap this up, David, can you talk about how this is still consistent with the theme of Star Wars as family?
See, I wonder if when they sit down and prep their actors to go do their media stuff, if they give them a little script saying use the word family a lot, because that's something we hear quite a bit coming out of all of the actors, which is either something that they're telling their actors to say or they actually mean it. And I really hope that they mean it, especially coming from Disney, the family company, talking about a family of actors who are doing movies on one screwed up Skywalker family.
They kind of ruined it for everybody else.
I'm Mark Hamill's cousin, nephew, 100 times removed or something like that. Can I be on Star Wars now?
Loftism. I don't know. I like the theme of family. I think that's a good thing. And I'm glad to see. I hope they actually mean it when they say Star Wars is a family.
And that's what gives me hope that whatever involvement this character will be in Episode 9, it'll be good, and it will make the story good, because I do like the theme. No matter what may or may not be the purpose behind the use of the word family, I like it. What do you think about this news from Billie Lourd that she's on set for 3 weeks, calls the story magical? What do you think about her character and what role it plays in the Star Wars galaxy? Let us know down in the comments below. Pages, Pixels, Pieces, the next segment of our show, episode 48. This segment brought to you by the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. Proud to have our local comic shop as our official sponsor. Comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. The Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. Proudly serving St. Louis in that brand new location. Excited to go see that this Thanksgiving holiday. I'm going to drive down, I think, on Friday. I think I have to work that morning, but I'm going to go down. I'm trying to talk David into going, but I don't know if he's going to go. But I want to go down on Friday. And Jesse, if you want to come too, you can come too.
I have to work at the Hobby Lobbies.
Oh, no. So anyways, I want to see the shop because I think it looks really cool. And I have to pick up all my books. Not just my comic, like Star Wars comics, but issues 1 and 2 of the Umbrella Academy. Gerard Way back writing with Gabriel Ba on the artwork for Umbrella Academy. Hotel Oblivion is something that I've been waiting for like 5 or 6 years. So really excited that series is out. Going to bag that in Mylar. Heck yeah. Okay, so 2 comics out this past week. Darth Vader 23 and Dr. Aphra 26. And of course, after we're done with these 2 comics, David is actually going to be able to let us know what comics are coming out this coming week. So we want to be able to give you that update. update. And let's just dive right into Darth Vader 23 because we have already begun the start of the end for this series. We've known for about a month and a half now that Charles Soule is done with Darth Vader, at least on this run, at issue 25. It's going to be a 2-year run. Started, I believe, didn't start. I think it started like February of 2016. I mean, it's coming up. It's like around that time where it began. Anyways, 2 years on the run. So this seems to be consistent with the previous Vader run that we got, the original back in 2015. That was a 2-year run, 25 issues. I have the hardcovers behind me because they're awesome. Okay, but Darth Vader 23. Here we are. We are on Mustafar. Darth Vader is trying to construct his castle, and he is using the helmet of trivia question. Momin, who is a
Sith Lord.
Old Republic character. Good job. So we're starting to get little tidbits. Little tidbits. I don't know what this hand gesture
Tasteful
is.
tidbits.
I don't know. This is usually what I do when I say, give me the money.
You're asking for pennies or something there.
Yeah, I'm rubbing my pennies, saving my pennies because that's all I have after the money I spent on my comic books. But it's interesting. This issue is a different approach to Vader's story than I think any issue that we've gotten before in this Charles Soule run. To me, it felt comical. At times, there was a humor I think was driving a certain sequence when they're showing just how many different approaches did they take to Vader's castle before they got it just right. Always try and do our best not to spoil anything, but we'll put the spoilers on the screen just in case because I don't want you to yell at us. I like this issue. I feel like it's a setup issue. I think it's to let us breathe a bit because I think something spectacular will happen in issue 25. I actually follow a couple of guys on the story group and a couple of women on the story group. And there's a couple of tweets that have come out recently about just how incredible Vader 25 is, which really excites me. So I really think that this one is to let us catch our breath and really gear up for the finale. David, your initial thoughts on Vader?
So they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I do.
Okay.
Because I like that cover art, and to me, this may be the best cover that we've seen. I know you really like, was it number 6?
5.
With Vader's helmet. Is that the one with
IP shattered?
Which is really cool. But I love that Vader's standing there with this big flowing cape, looking up at his fortress, his castle.
It's incredible. It gives me chills. And I also want to throw out, if you want another really cool Vader cover, 2. With the Clone Wars, the water detail on the clone helmets is pretty cool. That's a really nice one. Glad to hear that you liked it. Did the story work for you? Do you feel like this is one that stays on par with the Soule line? Because this is your comic line, man.
This is my comic line. I enjoyed this one. I really like the Momin helmet character. I like that he's in this issue, he's very optimistic. And how much can I spoil? Can I talk a little bit, or do you want me to?
I think you can, but I do. In case you don't know what we're talking about, I think I think if you go back to issue 22, a great spot to jump in right before the series ends, because this character gets introduced. But it's like a helmet that it's a helmet that belonged to a Sith Lord, and then it's like possessive. Like it takes possession of the body when it gets placed on it. Like you have to kill the body, and then then he's able to Well, I think I just spoiled that. There's one point where Vader kills a dude in this comic, and then the helmet gets placed.
We see that the helmet's kind of sucking the life out of people. So he's had a couple different
bodies
so
carriers.
But he's basically working with Vader to build the castle. And he does it like 8, 9, 10 different times, and every time it doesn't work and it explodes as they're trying to use this castle to open up like a gateway to the dark side of the Force.
There's always like a natural explosion that ends up taking out each version before that version we see in Rogue One exists. And it was that sequence that I was referencing, David and Jesse, that to me felt maybe like it was supposed to be like a bit like, here's this one. Big lava explosion. Well, how about this one, Vader? There's like this tentacle thing. Well, Vader, how about this one? It just blows up. It's like, how about this one? Oh, yeah, this will stick. I think it's like the 9th try or something. Jesse, you're not a big comic book reader, but you did open up this one. And you have actually followed the Darth Vader one pretty well because of how much we ooze about it.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on 23?
So I've enjoyed Vader.
Okay.
Like for the, I'd say out of the whole run, I mean, I've mostly enjoyed it. This didn't really do it like visually. It was still good.
Yeah.
The story right now is just not good for me. Like this is on par of when the clones had the lightsaber earlier in the series, and they were being careless and almost goofy and like not being the clones that we're used to seeing.
Issue number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of frustrated. You mentioned the whole like failed, building attempts, and it honestly that reminds me of Monty Python's Holy Grail, where I built a castle in the swamp. It sank into the swamp, so I built a second castle. That burned down, fell over, then sank into the swamp. I built a third castle, and that stayed up. Like.
And maybe that's why I like this, because he's
like-
like, the 10th one, the 9th one, that'll be the
So,
one, Vader. I've said this is a process all along.
So like there's a certain like I don't mind like a hint of like humor or something like this. To me kind of felt really cheesy
Okay.
because of that. And that's the thing is like I love dumb comedy, like British comedy and stuff like that, but like when it comes to Star Wars, I don't want it there. For me, it was a little bit of a buzzkill. So I kind of hope that we, and the final issues that we see out of this run, that there's like that redeeming final comic.
I think because of our conversation, I actually like the issue more because of the point that you make and then his response to it, because it is a little Monty Python, and I do kind of like the fact that this character is like joking with Vader at one point, being like, the 9th will be the try. Like, it actually maybe does work better for me now that I've had this conversation with you guys, and I like that. And I think that's the fun thing about Star Wars in general. Like this is the fun part, is when you're able to be like, I remember like when I would read the comics when I years back, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know how, and then I would talk to someone else, and they'd be like, well, this is why I like it, and be like, well, that's actually pretty cool. I really like how your brain thinks. And the collaborative process is really cool.
Again, 10 out of 10 visually, not so much.
Giuseppe crushes this. I wish more people knew about this guy's work, because it's not just Star Wars, but like to me, like you got to know Charles Soule writes it, and you got to know that Giuseppe Camuncoli does this artwork, because the covers and the panels always look top notch.
I mean, you just look at this, and every panel that Vader's in, his helmet has a sheen, and it looks like it's glossy and shiny.
Have you seen 25's cover? It's literally Vader, look like he's coming out of a lava explosion. It is ridiculous. It is gorgeous. If you're reading Darth Vader number 23, if you're on the line, let us know down in the comments below what you think. We also do have Dr. Aphra 26, I want to say. Yes, Dr. Aphra 26. This is part 1 of the Worst Among Heroes arc. I only got halfway through it. The Aphra series, for me, I'm just not so invested into it. And that's what I like about the variety of comics. I'm going to be into a lot of the new ones. We talked about the Age of the Republic, Age of the Rebellion, Age of the Resistance.
Those come out next month.
There's going to be that's going to be like 30 new comics. I'm going to get all of those. And I'm going to like that. But, Dr. Aphra is not for me. But you know what? Those might not be for Jesse, but Jesse has Darth Vader.
If you do want to try to get into Dr. Aphra, this is a good jumping point to get on.
Okay, break it down.
This one's very text heavy.
All right.
Which I'm okay with, because that means we get a lot of story. And the plots, I mean, it's something that we've seen time and time again in different, other fan bases, other stories.
Well, and we've seen it time and time again here, right? She's on the run from Vader.
On the run from Vader again. She's obviously been driving him crazy left and right. And one of her inmate co-workers basically implants her and her droid 000 with a proximity bomb. So if either one of them dies, both of the bombs explodes, they're both dead. If they get too far away from each other, they explode as well. So there's a little bit of humor and comedy in there, and I like 000. He's like the one character that I like out of this, because he's a murderous robot.
I love murderous
so
robots.
He's trying to go around and do his thing, killing people, but Aphra's not comfortable with that, but they can't get away from each other. But then Aphra's also upset because 000 wants to kill her, but 000 can't kill her, because if he kills her, then he'll explode because of the bomb in 000. And so they there's a little bit of comedy in there that kind of plays back and forth.
And talk about the cameo in this issue, because I think again this brings up something. are we shrinking the universe, or does it make sense for Aphra to not rock, but to cross paths with this character, the doctor? He's the guy, Dr. Esvian. What's his name? I always forget how to say it.
Oh,
he's the guy that shows up in the cantina.
Event. Yeah, let me look him up. I remember his name.
He doesn't like you.
I didn't make the connection that was the same guy.
So you see him in A New Hope in the cantina scene. He's the one that almost kills Luke right off the bat. You know how short A New Hope is? If he kills
He's
Luke?
got a cameo in Rogue One.
Evazan, Evazan.
Right. He's the one that hangs out with Walrus Face. But he came up in Rogue One too, as you mentioned. And so to me, I did see this.
I didn't make that connection that that's who that was.
So, it's like, is this a thing where are we shrinking? Are we shrinking the galaxy? I don't think so. I think here's the era that we're playing in. And it makes sense for Aphra's character, who is, this archaeologist, but also kind of like this rogue, scoundrel-ish. I can see her running into this character, and it works for me. To me, this did not shrink. And again, I read halfway through, and then I just scrolled through, and then I was like, oh, I've seen that guy before.
I see. I don't think it's shrinking the universe because it is a big galaxy. However, it's a very expensive galaxy if you're going to planet hop. And a lot of times when we go to the planets, we see the indigenous races, the big teddy bear looking Ewoks. They don't have space travel capability.
I really would like to know what fuel costs for like ships, because like if Jesse was flying the Slave One around the galaxy, planet hopping, how much does a gallon of fuel cost for you? And how many gallons does the Slave One hold? And how many miles per gallon do you get with the Slave One? Those are a lot of good questions, And so like you have a point where it's like it seems that, but then like Han Solo doesn't seem to be rolling in the money. He seems to be working gig to gig. So is it just like us with a car where it's just like, I don't know. Maybe that's a question we need to do some research on. Maybe we need to do some research on that one and come out with an exclusive video on it. I do not think that I have read the Aphra story so far because it doesn't appeal to me, and that's not because it's a female lead. It's just like I'm confused on her character. Like, is Aphra a humanoid or is she like robotic? She's like an android. That throws me for a looper, or for the loop. I don't think it threw me for a looper. And then like it just felt like an Elseworlds version of like a story I've already seen in the Star Wars galaxy. But if you go online and you go into the chat rooms, people are so obsessive about this series and are really firm believers that you're going to see her live action in the next couple of years, which I think is interesting because there are other characters like Sana Staros I'd like to see live. The one that came out we thought for a while was Han's wife. She faked to be Han's wife to get out of a scheme. You can read that in the comics.
Thrawn
would be fun to see live action. Would love to see that. I think of like characters that we've seen in like Lost Stars, and I'm trying to think of the one with a female Imperial that we get. I am spacing out right now. I always talk about how much I want her involved in the stories. Can you type in like female Imperial aftermath?
Risen?
Not Risen. She was like the one trying to take helm of the Empire in
Ray Sloan.
Ray Sloan. Ray Sloan is a character that has been around for a long time. We're talking before Disney took over. And so Ray Sloan is a female, strong character that I'd like to see on screen. But fans love Aphra so much, and this is my point. Fans love Aphra so much, they want to see her on screen before these other characters. So if you like Dr. Aphra, if you're reading about Dr. Aphra, let us know down in the comments below. David, that's this week. What should we expect coming out this Wednesday for Star Wars?
So Wednesday the 21st, we'll have Star Wars 57,
Okay.
which is called The Escape Part 2. That's a story that started last month. We'll have another solo adaptation, just kind of the movie on
Number 2,
on paper,
right?
Number 2.
Okay.
We'll get our 24th Darth Vader on the 28th. And then the last one will come out in December, so hopefully we'll get that omnibus sometime early next year.
I think it's going to be March or April at
But
the
I
earliest.
think the big thing to look forward to is starting December 5th and then kind of going forward from there. That's where we get like the Age of the Republics, where we get the Qui-Gon, the Darth Maul series.
There's a Django one, isn't there?
Yes.
Django.
I'm ready to that one.
Are each one of those one-shots, or are they going to be like...
I don't think they're one-shots. I understood it as like there were... I think like I like the series is like Age of Republic. I don't think they're one-shots. There's honestly not a whole lot of information that has been released on them. I just know that combined it's like 30 or 40 issues of comics.
I found the pic of Darth Vader 25 with him walking out of the fire, the magma with the lightning behind him. That is really cool.
That's something that you're going to want to put up on your wall.
If his armor is flame resistant or magma resistant, who's to say that Captain Phasma's isn't?
I like how you brought that back. You sly
You
dog.
are such a fan of Phasma. I don't get it.
What comics are you most excited about? Let us know down in the comments below. There's a lot coming out in the next 6 weeks. We're pretty excited. We have an updated list for Star Wars Battlefront 2, the roadmap details, and what's ahead. We're going to outline November through February. So I'm going to start with November. Yeah, Jesse's popping the knuckles. He's really excited. Oh my gosh, did you hear that? That was so loud.
That was a good one.
Those were good. Okay, cool. So this month in November, we know this. We've gotten Grievous. We got Obi-Wan Kenobi. Clone Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hello there.
I will go on record. Like, I think if there's like the coolest character for me, like I cannot wait to get the Black Series Rebel. The Black Series Rebel is a show. Black Series figure of Clone Wars like General Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yes, give me more of that. Like the micro series, which you can now watch the full 23 Cartoon Network Star Wars Clone Wars series on our YouTube channel. It's okay. Disney already put like 26 copyright claims on it, so you're just giving us the views, which is fine. But just from the very beginning that I've seen that, I love that Clone Wars armor. So I'm going on and on and on because you get to play as that character now in the series. And a tidbit that I want to talk about is the release of Geonosis. The new location is featuring the native Geonosians, but they're part of the living world, so they're like not interactive.
NPCs.
On the PC version,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So they've played an important role in the Clone Wars, colluding with the Separatists. Obviously, their involvement with Count Dooku and the plans to develop the Death Star. In case you don't know, the Geonosians basically became enslaved to build the Death Star, and it's outlined in the Tarkin novel. There was like a mutiny that was attempted on the Death Star construction, and they basically had a what's the word? I just had it on my head. What do you do when you just kill off a complete race?
They were the victims of genocide.
Yes, there was like a genocide of Geonosians at Mustafar. Because if you didn't know, the Death Star was built like right above Geonosis, and it moved around a few times. Anyways, so that's what's going on for November, and of course, here we are in the middle of November. You've seen all these things. December, there will be no game updates for December. As you know, the company is preparing to release that Clone Wars content in early 2019, and that includes a large-scale, non-linear game mode. But Jesse, January, we come right out of the New Year festivities, and boom, we're getting some new content.
Yeah, so they're going to hit us with Count Dooku in January. We're also going to get some more like appearances for like some of the heroes. So Dooku will have a few additional appearances. Obi-Wan's getting a few additional. Overall, they've been doing a lot. Like, I can't stress, there was a lot of drama around this game with the microtransactions. If you're still hesitant about this game, stop, because you're missing out on a canonical story that features Iden Versio, voiced and basically likeness of Janina Galvankar, which was phenomenal.
I think it's Gavankar, but she is phenomenal. I'll agree with you there.
Great story. Okay, and there's even a little Easter egg that ties in with a star compass that you see in The Last Jedi. So I mean, just a lot of improvements. Like they recently, General Grievous. They just actually revamped the squad system.
Okay.
With it, which basically plays like if you ever played a Battlefield game, you actually have a squad that you can spawn in on now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're making huge strides in improving this game. And that makes me excited that despite the heavy criticism and backlash, DICE is still trying to push forward and bring new content and fix issues with the game.
I think what excites me the most about what you told me about as far as what's happening in January is the playability of Dooku, because Dooku for me is a character that just didn't get... You can only tell so much story in the movies, right? And you got so much flushed out with Dooku in the Clone Wars. David, you and I, we played the campaign together when the game first came out. Does the ability to play as Dooku... does that make you want to kind of revisit the game?
If I had a gaming system that would let me play the game, absolutely.
Or if Jesse let us come over and play the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I really like Dooku. I think
touches the computer.
We slam the prequels a lot, but I really like, in their own way, Darth Maul and Grievous and Dooku. I just wish we could have seen more of them and had them be more menacing like Vader is.
And now you get to create some of those stories, let your imagination play out with Battlefront 2 and being able to play as Dooku. And one quick note, I do want to make mention, or do you want to mention February?
Let's not forget February. In February, we are getting Anakin Skywalker.
Like Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they haven't determined. Like, I think this will probably be more like for if you're playing the good guys.
Okay.
As a hero option. But they're also introducing a new large-scale non-linear mode that month. That's also when it's expected to see the 501st Legion clone trooper appearances. The other thing to note, too, again, I mentioned this, I think, a couple episodes back, where a independent modder for the game actually outdid DICE on clone trooper appearances.
Wow.
As far as coding and that were more mechanical and everything.
If you
DICE addressed it.
If you have a link to all that, can you include that? Like, can you send it to me? We'll post it on our Facebook
Yeah, I'll
and
try
Twitter.
To find it because
That'd be
it's
awesome.
actually a really interesting read because it's like DICE apologizing for not really putting like 100%,
The effort.
Into it. So like all like they basically said all upcoming appearances like for the clones will be like on scale with what that guy did.
Send that link over. I would definitely want to share it with you at home. I think that's going to do it. And also, I think there's like a new, the non-linear mode gets added to, I think, in February. So all that goodness coming to you in Battlefront 2. Like Jesse said, if you're not playing already, get the game either for yourself or find a buddy who has it. If you are playing, or if you're not, just you hear this news, does all this new stuff excite you? Because as Jesse mentioned, this game came out and was released and met a lot of criticism, but my goodness, the amount of added content we've gotten since is pretty impressive. Let us know down in the comments below. Next segment of our show, episode 48, having a great time with you. Hope you're having fun wherever you're watching or listening to our show. Really excited for this next topic we have on our slate here. John Williams. The man just defeated death like a week ago. We just talked about that. And now it turns out that not only is he scoring episode 9, he's also scoring the music for Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars theme park. That's going to open up next year in both Florida and California. So when we're talking about legacy here, because we know that we have like the Harry Potter land and we have like the Indiana Jones part of like MGM or whatever that's called now, there's multiple ways you're always going to consume his music, and that's his legacy. Mm-hmm. But this is like, to me, this is like a cherry on top. Like, he's done all these great movies. His music now lives on in the theme parks, and of course, it would make sense that you would think you'd have that original music playing through the park, but its own unique score. That's to me like, that's just like awesome. Entertainment Weekly actually broke this story. I want to say it was it today? I think it was yesterday that it broke. Anthony Breznican with Entertainment Weekly had this story, and it says, the legendary composer John Williams will provide that original score for visitors to hear within the attractions of the Star Wars-themed land of Galaxy's Edge, opening park next year. And again, this was their exclusive, so no one else has this. But there is a video online. We'll have the article and the link down below where its video will be playing. It's an aerial of the alien world of Batu. You'll have, which is currently under construction. And there's like a 2-minute video where you get to listen to it. We wanted to air the video, the video and the music with you right now, but copyright infringement. We just didn't want to go there. Lego is really, and Disney, they just didn't give me one claim on a video last week. They gave me 26. But it's okay. We get to still keep the video. We just don't get the monetization, which is totally fine. We just wanted to share the series with you. That was a side tangent. Guys, oh my gosh, this music is awesome. David, holy crap. You love scores and you love John Williams.
I am super stoked about this. I've listened to this like 18 times in the last day since this has been released.
Which makes sense because it's only a 2-minute snippet. So yeah.
Right. So you can do that.
You hear so many familiar songs within this 2 minutes, though.
He somehow figured out a way to tie all of the major themes together for all of the major characters, for all of the different movies, while it still sounds original and it still sounds Star Wars.
Yeah, it feels like when I first heard, this is going to make no sense, I guess, but the first time I heard the score he did for Harry Potter, I felt like I was going into a different world, but it was kind of familiar. It still had like the tendencies that he has when he composes a score. So then I hear this, and I'm like, I can imagine walking up to the theme park. Like, I can imagine myself walking up to the theme park and hearing this music and, like, the familiar notes. Like, I want to hear this when I'm, like, walking up to the cantina or when, you know, I'm walking to the gift shop. You know, like, oh, my God, I'm buying a Lego set when I go. It's going to be, like, 33% more expensive, but I don't care. It just, to me, like you said, it does such a great job of of weaving in all these familiar songs. Jesse, you listen to it. Does this excite you, or am I just overhyped? Would you rather just have the original songs from the movies?
Oh no, like I'm, like I mean, I like to hear something like so. I mean, like you mentioned, like if they have like a cantina like restaurant, what I'd like to see in there maybe is like get some animatronics because I know no actor would want to do it, but have like some animatronic like Biff musicians. And I'm sorry, I want to hear that one song the entire time I'm like eating.
You do want to hear it?
Yeah.
You want that to
not
be
like maybe like blaring, but like enough to where like it's there.
Now you
They
know
give you
that's
that
their species, but you know they're actually jizz musicians, right? Yeah. That was like the one middle finger that Lucas tried to give to the fans, I think.
vibe. So
They play jizz music. They jizz all night.
but you know, like this score and everything, like yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's everything you could imagine and never knew that you wanted.
Do you think that
You know, like
when you think of the theme parks, because they're both the same, but are you more likely to go to the Florida one or the California one?
you know, I've been to my family took a family vacation when I was just a kid, and it was right after they opened Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
which is really cool.
Which was really the thing is it was really cool, but it also wasn't finished. So like I don't know if I want to go right when this opens up, simply because I feel like it's not going to be 100% complete.
Well, it's like any ride. Like there's gonna be kinks that are gonna have to
at
be
the
worked
same
out.
time. I feel like you know like it's when it opens, there's going to be like that floodgate, and it may be like too crowded kind of thing. Like I feel like that has the potential to be too crowded.
I'm gonna be honest though. People go to the Harry Potter World all the time, and that place always looks packed. I don't know if it'll ever really slow down.
Part of me kind of wants to go like Florida would be familiar because I'm a creature of habit.
It's also a cheaper plane ticket.
Yeah,
From where we
but
live.
at the same time, California, I think would like maybe the weather might be better.
Cali or Florida?
Florida.
Okay, I think I'm Florida too. But you know what? I've only been to Anaheim, California, so it would be kind of cool to. It'd be kind of cool to go back. Although I'm pretty sure isn't this in Anaheim too? Pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'm going back to Anaheim maybe.
You know, if we go to California for this, we could go to In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, and that just makes this fat boy feel fat and sassy already. Girl, get it.
Quick note: my quarters are required to be in the Slave One. So to Disney, you have to build a Slave One for me to live in. You won't know that I'm living in it.
I don't know if that's the case for the California location, but I know in Florida they're also building a Star Wars themed hotel that we've talked about on the show before, and it's like an immersive experience. So I think that's why Florida is probably going to get my money.
The thing that really hurts me, and this is the inner child, like as a cosplayer, and I know like Disney's rules about adults and costumes and everything, but like the dream would be able to just like go and like wear my Mandalorian armor and just be able to kind of blend in with this galaxy far, far away that they built.
Jesse, you could just leave your job and go down there and be someone who dresses up as a Mandalorian professionally, and then you could be paid to be a Mandalorian.
I don't know if Disney, do you pay well for that? Get in touch with me.
At Disney, let us know down in the comments below. Hey, you know what? Are you excited about this news that John Williams is going to have this score? Have you listened to the music yet? The 2-minute snippet that we've gotten from Entertainment Weekly? Let us know down in the comments below. We'll also have that link for you down in the comments below, so that way you can give a listen to if you haven't already. I think it's just gorgeous music. We want to hear your thoughts. Stay on Target is the 4th segment of our show. We got a really fun topic this week. We're kind of always evolving this segment. Sometimes it's debate. Sometimes it's just a hot topic in the Star Wars galaxy that we just want to have time to really put some emphasis on. Solo Star Wars Story is selling well with Blu-ray sales. And I do quotations because it's all relative. I would say it's selling well because it's sold over 700,000 units. 700,000 Blu-rays, okay? So I think for most movie franchises, they would be excited about that, okay? So let me give you a little perspective And this is all from a tweet that spurred this conversation. Geek Furious put this out. To be accurate, 789,000 plus Blu-ray units sold in Solo's first week, compared to Last Jedi's, which sold 1.7 million in its first week. So he's saying, Solo would be well off had it had the Edge of Tomorrow numbers, but it actually more than double that movie's 350,000 first week units. So the whole point with that comparison to Edge of Tomorrow is the fact that most movies don't make $700 million, $600 million in the theater. Solo only made 300 something, and so I guess that's why we're trying to compare it to Edge of Tomorrow. But yet the Blu-ray sales between the two are not comparable at all. Solo sells way more people and are way more units, and we had a conversation on the show. We thought that a lot of people were waiting to buy this for home release, and then they didn't want to go out and see it in the theaters. Mm-hmm. David, that's how Solo compares to another movie that came out in theaters and did about the same at the box office. But how does this compare to, let's say, the Disney era Star Wars?
So I'm going to make the argument that this movie is selling better than Rogue One DVD sales did in their first week. So if you want to take, because I don't want to compare this to one of the canon movies, because it's really not.
Or
so
one of the saga films?
So I want to compare saga films. That's the word I'm looking for. So I want to compare this to Rogue One. So if you look domestically, Rogue One and Solo did about 38% of what Rogue One did. Internationally, Solo did about 40% of what Rogue One did, and in the DVD sales, the Blu-ray sales, they've done about 42% of what Rogue One did so far. So looking at that trend, this may be one of those movies that could be on its way to a Star Wars cult status, where it'll do better on DVD than it did in theaters, maybe as traction picks up, as people start to figure out that it's a pretty fun space romp. So I mean, at the end of the day, this movie still well surpassed its budget. This movie is still making Disney a whole heck of a lot of money, and I think we all agree that we both, we all three kind of enjoyed it, despite some flaws. But so I'd make the argument that this is doing better percentage-wise. Gross sales is obviously more important. But
Jesse, where do you stand on this? Because we have talked at length and for months, but there are some factors that this movie had to encounter that aren't the movie's fault or responsibility. The movie should have been released in December. It wasn't given enough breathing time from The Last Jedi. It had director issues. You had to get Ron Howard in there, who reportedly shot anywhere from 75 to 90% of this movie. Do you think that this is still a success, these numbers, or do you think this is a bit of a flop?
I mean, if you, in comparison, it depends on how you look at it. From a marketing standpoint, I think probably any professional, guy who deals with accounting or numbers is going to go, okay, compared to The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rogue One, this flopped. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I know the world isn't fair. I don't think it's fair, because I know all three of us went and saw that movie in the theater.
Multiple times.
Mm-hmm. That Midwest theater. Anyway, we all saw it multiple times, and I enjoyed it. This was a film that did a lot of fan service on the broader side of the lore. Those side stories, or and it was nice. Mm-hmm. Now, do I think there was issues with the film? Yeah, I mean, that's any movie and everything. I still enjoyed this movie. You should see it. If you didn't see it in the theater because you were being a ninny, okay, just quit being a ninny and go buy it on Blu-ray or DVD and watch it, because you are missing out on a fun adventure, on a fun, exciting, background story for one of your favorite characters of all times. Yes, it's not Harrison Ford, I get that. But you're seeing that bond between Han and Chewie grow, okay? You get some really cool characters and some Easter eggs. Go see it and enjoy it.
It's a good movie. There's no doubt about it. I think it definitely holds its own against the Rogue One. Rogue One to me, I think, is still significantly better. But I think
Yeah.
as a Star Wars story, as a side story, it was really great. And before we wrap this up, David, real quick, do you still have the numbers? Can you just let me know Force Awakens? I'd be curious to know what the Blu-ray sales were on for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Let me get back to that.
I'd be fascinated to know, just because we talk about how Force Awakens made $2.2 billion at the box office, and I think I read somewhere that Force Awakens sold like 3, maybe 4 million units.
Force Awakens sold 3.4 million Blu-rays for a total of 85 million in revenue. Rogue One was 1.8 million for 38 million revenue.
Okay.
Last Jedi was just behind that at 1.7 million at 40 million revenue. So they must have sold that one for more than they sold Rogue One, because they made more money off of
Price point, maybe.
Yeah. And then Solo sold 789 so far.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that update. And also want to thank the good guys over at StarWarsNewsNet.com for helping break down a lot of those numbers. That's where we went before the show started. Again, they seem to be, if they're not breaking the news, they give some really cool background information,
It's
a lot
usually
of stuff.
like as soon as you say I'm rolling show notes out, or there's been stuff, that's the first place that I type in.
Because they give a lot of really great background.
Yeah,
so
it's very collective.
want to make sure that we give those guys and gals some love. Are you surprised about the sales about Solo? Are you one of those people that waited until the movie came out on Blu-ray? Are you mad that they don't put this movie out on DVD anymore? Because I'm a little upset about I can't buy DVDs anymore. Have you noticed that? It's like all Blu-ray and 4K.
Yeah.
The DVD is dead. They're killing the DVD on me already.
I feel like I need to start looking into buying a Blu-ray player.
Do you know how many DVDs I have?
A lot.
Too many, apparently, now. Like, the moment I realize they're dead, I'm like, I got too many of these things. It happened with CDs. Like, I have too many of these things now. You need to buy a Blu-ray. Let us know down in the comments below. Are you going to buy a Blu-ray? Have you had the Blu-ray? Do you like the movie? I don't know. Just talk to us. We just want friends. Last segment of the show, we are flying Fan Comlink and Undisputed, our favorite segment of the show, because we just get to talk with people who actually enjoy watching us. So that means the world. We got 3 really cool questions submitted to us this week that we're going to pick from. So the first one comes from Dennis Escobedo. I did my best there. But the question is, I'm just wondering if Rey's parents really are nobodies, or if it's a lie to protect someone else's interest.
I think the 3 of us are wondering that too.
I think most fans, like 99.9% of Star Wars fans right now, are wondering if that's a lie. And to go to Jesse's point that he mentioned earlier, is JJ going to address that in Episode 9? Whatever titled movie that is, because we don't know the title right now, is that one of those things that a lot of fans anticipate getting addressed and not retconned, but maybe course corrected is a better way of saying it? Jesse, what do you think?
I think it's a lie, honestly. Like, why would Kylo Ren have that kind of insight? Like, he really doesn't know anything about Rey at all. I just feel like it's a lie. Like, I feel like he was trying to do it to try to
Manipulate her.
But
At the same time, don't you think that maybe in that Force connection that they have in The Last Jedi, that because they're kind of like in this space together, that there's like some like emotional understanding of each other that they understand? Because like Rey talks about how she, like, the way she talks about Kylo after those experiences, it's like she kind of like knows him or knows how he thinks or how he feels. Like there's more. Like she sees a future for him, and it's good. And so I wonder if there's like an emotional bond there to where like they're connected, and that's why I think there's maybe legitimacy to what he says in The Last Jedi.
If anything, I think deep down Rey knows that. I think she really was abandoned. Kind of thing, but at the same time, I don't feel like her parents were like just absolutely nobody. I feel like that there's some sort of significance why she was, potentially left behind.
David, let's talk about The Force Awakens. Or you make your point first, but I got a question for you.
Are they still talking? Is there still rumor? Has there been any further discussion on whether they're going to take Episode 9 and split it into 2 parts?
We haven't gotten that.
9
So
and 10.
far, what we're told is it's one movie.
Because
I've been trying to call JJ. He's not taking my calls at the moment.
I just there are so many things that we need to wrap up in 2.5 hours that unless for some reason Rey's parentage is a major plot point, then I think that's going to be it. Because we have to figure out if this is the last Skywalker saga movie, we need to figure out how peace is coming back to the galaxy. We need to figure out the Knights of Ren. We need to figure out, is Captain Phasma really dead? What happens to Hux? Is Snoke really dead? How did C-3PO get his red arm? I mean, there's just how.
We do know how C-3PO got the red arm in the comics.
Yeah, it was a comic book, I believe.
And that's also like a very minor thing we need to wrap up.
Once again, there are just so many things that they could be discussing that unless this is something really, really major, I think they're just going to drop.
What do you think about in The Force Awakens when we had that scene with Maz Kanata at her castle with Rey, and she's like telling Rey, like, the truth about your parents. You need to look about what's in your future. You need to go find Luke. That's what life is calling you to do. Maz. So we get that also in The Last Jedi. It's a reflection of that with Kylo telling, you already know the truth. Nothing. They were nobody. It seems that does that scene in The Force Awakens also give support to the fact that they're nobodies? They're you know what I'm saying? It just seems, if it was just Kylo having this conversation with Rey so far, I'd be like, yeah, he's just manipulating her. But it also seems that Rey has doubt. It also seems that Maz, who is Force sensitive, has this feeling that they're never coming home. Mm-hmm. She needs to go find her own journey. It really sounds like Rey is just this lost person who is Force sensitive, who is able to tap those skills. Oddly, 19, whatever she is, pretty old to be learning the ways of the Force. I still believe that she had some kind of training early on, and then she had her mind wiped or something. Because there's no other explanation for me to know. How is she so strong? But I think it is interesting. I do think her parents get addressed in Episode 9. Jesse?
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, let us know what you think. And also, Dennis, thanks so much for that fan question. Because I really do think, Dennis, that is the question on a lot of people's mind. Will we get her parents mentioned in Episode 9? And will we see the Knights of Ren? Mm-hmm. And I think if you wanted to have like the ultimate saber battle, because something we talk about is we need more lightsabers, you bring in the Knights of Ren and they have archaic weapons and maybe one of them has a saber. Mm-hmm. That could be some fun sequences.
I think that'd be cool.
That could be a lot of fun. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Next question we have from Melly Jo, who tweeted us last week. I'm really excited that she has another question for us this week. I know that she's recovering from cancer. She's home-ridden. She likes to watch our show at home, so that makes us feel really good. And so we want to make her feel good. We want to answer our Star Wars questions. This is pretty good, and I have a lot of questions about R2.
This is a wordy one.
Over the course of the Star Wars timeline, I have a lot of questions about R2. But who gets ownership of R2 in Episode 9? Luke's droid. Luke is now dead. Does R2 go to Leia, to Rey and Chewie? Does Chewie get the Falcon, or does Lando take the Falcon? So we got two questions here in one. First, R2-D2. Who gets R2-D2? David, you want to start this one?
No, because I'm still deciding.
Jesse.
I want to say that, in my mindset, it would by default go to Leia because,
Siblings.
R2 was originally Padme's, which she kind of let Anakin have, and then they got secretly married, so then kind of like, it's like the TV, household TV kind of thing. You both share the TV. So I want to say, it's like probably, in my mind, Leia gets it. I could see where she's like going to put it go ahead, he's useful, take him kind of thing. Like let Leia or not Leia, but Rey and Chewie kind of keep him around. That's the last we saw him when he had David's favorite animal with porgs covered all over it, and everything.
David, do you know who you want to have take ownership of R2?
No, I don't. I know who I don't want to take
Who?
ownership. Well, Poe Dameron, first off.
Well, because if Poe takes ownership, R2 probably dies. Yeah,
probably crashes the droid.
You see R2's head just rolling.
But he's already got BB-8. I don't see Rey getting possession of R2 because, BB-8 is half hers in a weird way because BB really
there's no
likes
connection
her.
between the two.
Yeah.
between BB-8 and
R2 and Ray.
Oh
R2
no,
and
yeah,
Ray.
I get that.
I could see R2 just sticking around with the Falcon. You know, whatever happens to Falcon, the Millennium Falcon, I could see R2 just sticking around there.
Well, and that brings up the interesting point too. The interesting point that Melly Joe asked here as well is the second question is who gets the Falcon, and I would assume it'd be Chewie's ship.
I would assume it'd be Chewie's.
I don't think Lando just comes back and takes. I think that if anything, I don't know, because I could totally see Lando coming back and being the pilot and Chewie becoming the co-pilot.
But see, I don't know what Lando's been doing for the last number of years. Is he still heartbroken over the loss of his droid L337? You know, is he still missing that?
Again, sorry, spoilers. You should have seen it by now. If you watched Han Solo, their Solo, a Star Wars story, you would know that Han used his winnings of his adventure to play a game of sabacc with Lando, and he legitimately won the Millennium Falcon, taking ownership. So with that being said, that little prize from his adventure wasn't just Han's. It was also Chewie's. So you can almost say it's like if I needed a new car and my dad co-signed on that car, technically my dad kind of owns part of that car. Same thing here. So this is Chewie's ship now.
You know what I think is cool is because of what you just mentioned. If you watch Solo, you also know that they use L3 to kind of like reboot the systems of the Falcon, and now L3 is part of the Falcon. So now it's exciting to me because you cannot deny that Donald Glover's performance of Lando was one of the top parts of that movie.
Yep, it was good.
Now, how does Billy D. Williams take what Donald did with the character and integrate that with what he does in 9? Will he be given that opportunity? Because I think it'd be a really cool nod to Solo if Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian is at some point boarding the Falcon and rubs the side panel and says, "Hey, girl, it's been a long time."
Or there's that awkward moment in the weird compartment where he's doing...
Yeah, that could also happen too, I guess. But I was trying to be sentimental. Like, that way, to me, like, I kind of got a couple of goosebumps just now because to me, that is what we want. We talk about how we're tying all these movies together and how we're trying to make the story cohesive. To me, that really excites me. It's honestly, it's not the same scale, but it's similar to when I saw Chewie and Han in that first teaser for Force Awakens. Chewie, we're home. You know, like, oh my gosh. Like, those are the little nods, the little hints of references that I want in the story. So it's not in your face, but when that... you know exactly what's going on there. I think that's what's most exciting about all this conversation.
Yeah. So I think Chewie owns it, but I could totally see Lando kind of hanging out on it.
I mean, like, Lando's got to be ancient, like, you know.
He's like 80.
Yeah. Well, Billy D. Williams is 80. I don't know if the character is that old.
He'd be like 65.
Do you think they'll do a little bit of de-aging on Billy D?
I don't know. He's working out. There's been video and photos released of him working out and trying to get in a little bit better of shape. So, I mean, I don't know how physical he will be or how mobile he is, but I could see him, you know, he might be walking around or sitting at like a debriefing scene or something.
I mean, I don't see him doing backflips and, you know, grabbing a saber and fighting and
It'd be fun to see him in a blaster fight one more time. That'd be kind of dope. Well, what do you think? Do you think who will own R2-D2? Who will get ownership of the Falcon? I like the conversation that we had here. A couple plausible ideas. Melly Joe, thanks for the tweet. Let us know what you think about this conversation down in the comments below. It's our final tweet of Fan Comlink. Great questions this week. Love that. And, of course, you can always tweet us your Star Wars questions anytime at Beyond the Blast Doors. I believe our hashtag is at, the hashtag is Beyond the Blast Doors, but our at for Twitter is Beyond without the O Blast Doors. So you only get so many characters, and I couldn't fit Beyond fully in there, so I had to sacrifice the vowel. But tweet us anytime your Star Wars questions. Last question here. Ireland tweets us, or IR3 Land. Okay. Pretty sure it's Ireland. Do you think they'll, Disney, Lucasfilm, drag Anakin into Episode 9 to tie up the saga? Guys, this is something that we talked about once or twice on and off the show. If we're looking at Episode 9 as the cherry on top, the conclusion of the Skywalker saga, and the end of these saga films, it has to tie it all together. There has to be influence of the prequels, the OT, obviously, and you have to end this story in a way that, I don't know, maybe suggest there is more to the story to be told, or maybe it wraps up like Return of the Jedi, where you just have the cast and crew there, in Ewok Village.
Well,
do that.
Ewoks are, well, no, I guess they're not cannibalized.
I really hope
They're
we're not going back
eating
to Endor.
stormtroopers,
But Anakin Skywalker, the involvement there of that character who's been so pivotal in the story so far, 1 through 6 is his story. You can argue pivotal in Force Awakens and Last Jedi because Kylo is obsessive about his grandfather, David. Does Anakin come back? Do you want him to come back? And how could it be done to work?
So I'm going to do a 360 here, or I guess a 180 here.
Okay.
360 would be completely around. Because I have, on this program, said multiple times that I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
I'm going to change my mind.
Why?
Because right now you have Kylo Ren, who thinks he's hot shit. And he has nobody to humble him, nobody to bring him down a notch, because Snoke's allegedly gone and Luke's allegedly gone and everybody's just gone. But we know that he has this fascination with his grandpa. Mm-hmm. He that's why he wears that silly looking mask, because he wants to be like Darth Vader.
Silly looking mask. I would argue that he should have kept that mask on longer.
I would agree, but Snoke wasn't a big fan of that mask. So I could see Anakin somehow coming back to say, listen, kid, here's where I screwed up as being a Dark Lord of the Sith. Maybe you shouldn't continue down this path.
I think it's interesting with that theory, because the question is, well, why hasn't Anakin, through the Force, come to talk to Kylo to stop all this from happening? If Anakin has the ability to come back as a Force ghost, which I think is assumed that he learned, even though he was a Dark Lord for most of his Force-using life, or about the same, actually. It was about the same. Why didn't Anakin come back sooner to try and save Kylo? That's why I think that if we get Anakin Skywalker back, it is going to be through a Force vision or through a holocron or some kind of recorded message. Jesse, what are you thinking?
I'm on the boat of yes.
He's gonna be back.
But it's again, is it a hollow recording? I don't want the interaction of him as a Force ghost with Kylo, because the thing is that Anakin's story is that of redemption, and it's one of those things where he's not going to come back and this is how you be a better Sith Lord kind of thing, because that's not him anymore.
No, I think if he were to come back as a Force ghost, it would very much be like, Kylo, you're ripping your soul into pieces. You have to stop.
I don't think that he can come back as a holocron, because as a Sith Lord, he was black suited helmet Darth Vader, not scraggly hair.
Yeah.
But not Hayden Christensen. Mm-hmm. He was in the suit. And you could get anybody to go into the suit who's tall enough, and you could get James Earl Jones to do the voiceover again if they were going to bring him back in a holocron as a Sith Lord.
I could roll with that, although you'd have the challenges now 2 years later. Rogue One, you could kind of hear the age of James Earl Jones.
The thing is at the same time, though, Hayden Christensen was at the last celebration, and he was actually very much welcomed, there. So I think it would be great to actually see him, brought back. Nothing like large scale, but I think a lot of people discredit him, and the prequels and everything. Yeah, so maybe the lines and the dialogue and Attack of the Clones, that's a whole nother topic. But
I still don't fully understand Lucas's argument to make his Force ghost his younger image. I still don't fully it doesn't make sense to me. But if you have that, I have always wanted to see what a conversation between Force ghost Luke's father and Luke looks like. Now, obviously, we don't have a living Luke. Mm-hmm. But is there some way for those two ghosts to interact? We know, because of Return of the Jedi, it seems like they can. You have Anakin, you have Obi-Wan and Yoda lined up there, and they're kind of looking at each other. So these Force ghosts can recognize each other in that plane that they exist on. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Maybe it includes little Rebels storytelling with time and how it gets altered. Who knows? What do you think about this conversation? That is some deep dive into the possibilities of episode 9. What do you think about Anakin Skywalker? Could he return in episode 9? Let us know down in the comments below. Boys, that's the end. Episode 48 is in the books. So glad that we could get together and make this happen. Want to say thanks to everybody who has been checking out our videos over the last week, doing something different with our show. We released by topic, and then we gave you the full episode kind of towards the end of the week to get you excited about the new episode. Maybe this week we'll try and do the same thing, I think, because it seemed to work out. In the last week, you guys, 1,300 plus views. We've gotten 10 new subscribers. Want to welcome all those new folks to the Star Wars community that we have building here, and just thanks to you guys, because I think the more we do this, I think we know where we're trying to go with our conversations, and it's really fun. And then what's so cool is to see people dive even deeper. Like we had this conversation, and then you go in the comment section, and guys are going even deeper into what we're talking about. So it's a lot of fun. So please keep watching those clips, share those with friends that you know, ask them to subscribe to us, build us up. We're closing in on 700 subscribers, and we want to do a big old giveaway. We might have to do the giveaway now to get us to 700. We have a pile of comic books this tall, no joke. I got the text from Steve, this tall. I think we get Steve to our studio to record the giveaway video, and then we can have an episode with Steve finally after all this time has passed. It's he's like
Help us, Steve Kenobi. You're your only hope.
Oh, there we go. There's a Star Wars pun. I was trying to find one, and that's apparently the best we got. Episode 48. It's in the books. Thanks for joining us. May the Force be with you.